Jesse Rubin from Rubin Adjusting. He has worked in public adjusting since 2013. He specializes in structural repair estimates, personal property valuation, and has lots of experience with wildfires. So, Jesse, if you could just explain your role as a public adjuster and let us know, how do you get paid as well? So what's your role and how are you paid?
Those are fantastic questions. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to come and do this. I think it's very important. And I do appreciate you guys taking the time. So a public insurance adjuster is licensed by the Department of Insurance to represent homeowners, business owners, commercial property owners in claims against their insurance company. This could be for things like wildfires, burst pipes, vandalism, vehicular damage. It ranges. But for today, what's relevant is the wildfire and how a public insurance adjuster can assist with a wildfire claim. A public insurance adjuster will negotiate with your insurance company to ensure that you're paid everything that is reasonably owed to you. And in many of these situations with the wildfire, the onus is on the property owner to actually substantiate the nature of their claim. That's where a public insurance adjuster can play a big role, is putting professional numbers to the damages and then ensuring that the insurance company actually understands that this is serious. The way a public insurance adjuster charges is on a percentage. So there's no upfront cost. There's no hourly billable or anything along those lines. The only time someone like me gets paid is when we've actually convinced the insurance company to pay our clients appropriately. And we work on a small percentage that's based on how much is available to recover.
So, one thing that we've sort of heard is that if your home is a total loss, a public adjuster might come in at a different point than if your home is still standing but is smoke damaged. Can you talk a little about that?
Is correct. So someone who has partial damage is most likely not going to be paid their policy limit immediately. For a claim that has partial damage, either smoke damage or fire that has partially entered onto the property, an adjuster from your insurance company will come and actually put together an estimate of what the repairs will cost. As public adjusters, it makes sense for us to be alongside them during that inspection so that they set the loss reserves appropriately. And so they take the claim seriously. Because there are so many total loss events that have occurred, the insurance companies may look at some of the smoke damage claims and partial fire damage claims with less seriousness than the ones where the home is gone in its entirety. Having a public insurance adjuster can ensure that your claim is attended to. So for partial damage, a public adjuster can be helpful anytime. For total loss, the Department of Insurance put out a circular that said that every person that is affected by the fire with a total loss home should receive 4 months of their loss of use up front, 30% of the personal property limit, and I believe 40% of the building limit. The percentages might be slightly off, but there is a circular that has this information. Any of you that have experienced total loss homes, if your insurance company has not already provided that to you, get back on the phone with them and demand that they do, per the circular that Ricardo Lara sent out. Once the insurance company provides you with your initial advance, advises if they're paying your limit or half of it or whatever their percentage, that's when you would go to a public adjuster and say, please analyze my policy. Tell me, based on how much they paid here, how much is left over and what you would charge to get it.
One question I have, and many people have asked this and I already know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. If you accept monies for your claim, are you losing any rights?
As long as the check does not say full and final payment, You're fine to accept money and deposit it. I've only seen 2 checks in my career that said full and final payment. And when we saw those checks, we sent them straight back to the insurance company and said, this is not a full and final payment. Change the check. And they did. So it is something to watch out for, but it's incredibly rare.
What kinds of things, Jesse, do non-experts, or I'm going to say homeowners, miss when they try to negotiate their own claim on their behalf? You know, what are we going to miss that you're not going to miss? You know, even if we hire you after that initial lump sum, what might we miss?
So there's 2 estimating softwares that the insurance companies use in our current environment. One is called Xactimate from a company called Verisk, and there's another one called Symbility from a company called CoreLogic. As public insurance adjusters, we write our estimates in the same format and language that the insurance companies use. So I'm proficient in writing in Xactimate. I personally don't write in Symbility, but I have other people in my office who do. We also engage experts who help us prepare estimates for very complex claims. Most homeowners, the thing that people keep in mind is get 3 bids. So they'll get 3 bids from a contractor, but the insurance company will turn around and say, well, this is apples to oranges. It's not the exact same thing. It's lump sum. We can't break it down. We don't know how to validate it. And they'll stick with their numbers until we give them something that's in the same language as their own. So the format is very important. And I can tell you that as public adjusters, we know what to look for in terms of wildfire damage. If someone calls me with a smoke claim, as I'm going into their home, the first thing I'm doing is looking into the corners of every single room to see, do I see smoke webs? I'm running my fingers along the tops of areas that are not often accessed to see, does it come back black? We know what to look for in order to ensure that it's all taken care of. While we're not like environmental hygienists, we sure well know when to call one. So having a public insurance adjuster means that you're better informed and you know what resources you need.
One thing you said just now, you said you speak the same language as the insurance company. We've had a lot of people ask, well, do I need a public adjuster or do I need a lawyer? And I think there's some language concerns there too, right? Once you hire a lawyer, that lawyer is only talking to a lawyer. Is that correct?
No, the lawyers are going to be dealing with adjusters. So the lawyers that are engaging with wildfire victims, until it's determined whether there is a culprit to sue, they are actually acting as public insurance adjusters and are essentially performing the same task, just for more expensive, generally speaking.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so Lorenzo's iPhone. Corey, will you read his question? Oh, Corey, you're on mute.
Hi. There's a lot of questions in here, but let me do a little consolidation here. So in general, who pays for the soil engineers, environmental specialists, fire damage specialists, smoke testing, all those special testing tests that we've been hearing a lot about, number one, and number two, do homeowners front the money and then the insurance company reimburses, or does the insurance company give money up front to pay for all these specialists? And let's start there. That's a lot.
So some policies do cover environmental testing, most policies. Some policies have exclusions for environmental testing. So someone would actually need to look at the full copy of the policy, not your declaration page or renewal package, but the whole thing to be able to tell you, yes, confirmed you have coverage for this. I can tell you that under the Cal Recycle and Cal OES program, there will be a soil testing and contaminated soil removal component within the hazardous removal. It's not something that we get involved in because it's performed by the government. But as I understand, they will test the soil. If it comes back with terrible things, they're going to remove 3 to 6 inches and then retest. So that will be performed. But in terms of hiring experts like engineers, architects, testers, generally the insurance company would believe that that comes out of your main building limit for the coverage A, the structure. We always argue on every one of these cases that the engineer, the architect, the testers, all of those people that are involved in gathering documentation should be viewed as an investigative cost and not pulled from the policy limit, which is very important for people that don't have enough insurance. The insurance companies do not always agree with this. There are times we are able to get them to agree, but I would imagine with so many claims being filed, they will fight tooth and nail to keep those costs within the limit.
Got it.
Got it. Corey, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, so Brooke asks, does the adjuster hire the tester when it comes to assessing the damage? Like, does the adjuster hire, does insurance hire? Who hires these, other third-party companies?
So anytime anyone is doing work on your property, whether they come from the insurance company or yourself, you're normally, as the homeowner, going to be the one signing a work authorization. That's generally what I see. The insurance companies do sometimes offer their own testing companies to come out, but you as the homeowner would approve them actually performing the testing there because you have the option to choose your own people if you desire to.
Got it. Got it. And then I'm not sure if you can speak to this, but when you get a payout, if you are not sure what your next step is, whether you're going to build or not, does that money come straight to you? Does it go into some sort of holding account? Can you speak to that at all? That might not be your lane, but
So it's not exactly our lane, but we walk next to it, if that makes sense. If you have a mortgage company on your property, when the insurance company issues the coverage A dwelling check, they're going to include the mortgage company on the property. For anyone who has lost their home already, please reach out to your mortgage company, talk to the lost draft department, let them know that you've lost your home and that you need to start the process for endorsing the insurance checks. They'll send you a pile of paperwork that you'll need to fill out and get back to them. And every bank does it differently. Some will just send the check back to you. Some will put it into an account and send disbursements. If it ends up being the scenario where they send disbursements, the mortgage company may monitor what repairs occur because they have an interest in the property being restored as well. So it's not part of what we do because we generally are just dealing with the insurance companies. But I have a lot of experience with the mortgage companies, and generally they're very interested in ensuring that builds take place if they partially own the property.
thank you. I have another question here. How can people whose structure still stands kind of understand if their home is safe to re-enter? I know that there's some testing. We've heard about a couple tracks like this, but can you, in your experience, what happens next if your home is still there?
So there are black carbon tests that can be done to prove that there was smoke. But look, if you walk into your home and it smells a lot and there's, particulate or things that are all around, generally that means it needs to be cleaned before you can actually reside in there. And it's not just the structure, it's all of the items that are inside as well. Prior to this fire, we were working the Camarillo fire. We still have many clients we're helping there. And as we would drive through the streets, you would see all of the Serve Pros and the Rainbow Restorations and all of these guys basically taking all of the items out of the home, cleaning them in cleaning chambers, putting them in pods for storage, and then cleaning the remainder of the home. The other thing to consider too is that there are aspects in the home that don't do well with smoke. The main one is insulation. So if you did have smoke enter into your home, there is a chance you'll need the insulation removed and replaced in your attic and crawl space. And if the smoke was really bad, it's possible that it could be in the insulation in the walls too.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Can you speak some to people who are either have a home that they're going to return to or they don't, and they have this temporary housing? How can adjusters help them? Like, what if you had to go out and rent an apartment that's much more expensive than your mortgage? Because that's what's available now. And let's say you had a great mortgage or you had no mortgage. Those expenses, I think those living expenses that people are encountering.
So we don't charge on the living expenses, but we do help with them. I have a housing coordinator in my office that all they do all day is just help people get into hotels, into rentals, things along those lines. The prices are going to go up. So get into places as soon as you can. The coverage that you have for your loss of use is specifically intended for the increased cost for the rental, increased food cost, additional mileage, additional utilities. It's what it's intended for. What you need to do when you look at your policy is, if the loss of use section is a number, I recommend dividing that number by 24. And if it's a total loss structure, and that's how much generally you have from the insurance to spend per month, because it very well could be a 2-year process. And for people who have what's called ALS, actual loss sustained, that coverage for loss of use means that whatever you spend, the insurance company will reimburse you as long as it's reasonable. And for people that have ALS under their coverage amount, the Department of Insurance has made it clear that they will automatically force the insurance companies to extend it from 12 months to a 24-month limit. And then you can apply for 6-month extensions with good cause if you're doing your work.
One question I think a lot of people have had is, hey, I have a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house. I've lost use of that. My kids are grown and gone. I'm now in a studio apartment, and so I'm not spending what I could be spending on housing. Can that money come back to me into my pocket? Or what if I'm just staying with family?
So if you do not use the additional living expense, they don't pay it. It's a cost that has to be incurred. But if you are living with family, I would say that you are incurring a cost, and your family should provide you with some form of written lease for the portion that you're using that you could submit to the insurance company. And at least get to somewhere that you're going to be happy, safe, you feel good, because this is going to be a long process. Do your best to find the home that's right for you, also knowing that the demand is high.
Okay. Fair enough.
I have a question here. It's maybe a tough one, but if you have a surviving home, is there any kind of ballpark that, from your experience, Jesse, that it takes people to do that remediation and to be able to move back in?
Yes. So from what I've been seeing in Camarillo, the amounts that these emergency service cleaners are charging seems to range between $40,000 and $100,000 for smoke cleaning. And that includes both the structure itself and the personal property. But you may not be able to move in once the cleaning is done, because they may have also needed to remove some drywall or flooring to be able to access carpet pad or insulation. So it is possible that once that initial 40 to 100,000 remediation is performed, that you would then need to go back and perform reconstruction repairs prior to being able to move back.
You know, that brings up something really interesting because, right, the serve pros of the world are going to tear it up, but they're not going to put it back. So are you, is insurance going to cover putting it back?
Yes, so that is the core of what your insurance is for. And that is what a public insurance adjuster would assist you with. So, like for these smoke damage claims, I would tell you that until you have your cleaning and mitigation, the removal of unsalvageable material done, a public adjuster wouldn't be able to tell you how much the repairs would truly cost, because there could be damage hidden inside of walls that's unseen, that only the mitigation company is aware of to remove. But that is a part of the process. Once mitigation is done, reconstruction takes place, and your insurance company will pay for that.
Got it.
Jesse, oh, sorry, Teresa, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Jesse, I'm not sure if this crosses over, but do you happen to know if you're either a landlord with tenants or a tenant with a landlord, and you've had smoke damage or loss, like who's responsible?
So tenants should have renter's insurance to be able to account for the items that they own, and they would have all of their items cleaned, put into storage and then brought back once the repairs are performed. For the landlord, it's the same as all of the homeowners. They just have a damage claim on their hand that needs to get attended to. The only question will be whether the unit is habitable or not.
Got it. Thank you. Do you ever make recommendations on mitigation companies to your clients?
Yes, because there are many mitigation companies that are not looking to do anything good in particular. And especially in this situation where people might not necessarily have enough insurance, it's important to work with someone that's not going to take advantage.
And do you have any recommendations now, or is that something you would hold on to for later?
No. So one of the companies that we work with most closely is Rainbow Restoration of Northridge. They're honorable people, I guess, is the best way I can put it. They're not going to take advantage of somebody. Who else is good? So the thing about all the serve pros and the service masters is they're all franchises. So, the one from Buena Park might be very different from the one from Woodland Hills, if that makes sense.
It does.
So I have had good experience with Serve Pro Northridge. They do a good job. There is another company I've worked with extensively called MSB Disaster Recovery. MSB is also fantastic. They do both the mitigation and the reconstruction work, and they do a very, very good job.
I think that's really important to know that they do the mitigation and the reconstruction, because many of these companies do the mitigation, but, then you're just left with open walls. So I think that's important to know. I have kind of a complicated question that someone just asked. And the first part of the question is, do you need to rebuild your home to claim replacement cost rather than actual cash value? And then here's where it gets complicated. Can you assign the claim to a buyer when you sell your parcel to capture the full claim value?
So I'll start with the first one. Replacement elsewhere is possible. The way that it would work is, let's say you have $1 million claim at your home right now, but instead of paying you $1 million, they give you $900,000 because they withhold some depreciation. They basically tell you, unless you replace, you're not going to get that other $100,000. Then you could go purchase a property where the appraised value of both the building and the land is in excess of $900,000. And if that building and land value is $1 million, you would submit that purchase back over to the insurance company and recover your depreciation as a result. You can do that as well with extended replacement cost benefits. So you do not need to build there. And then the assignment of benefit, it's a very interesting concept. Throughout the country, a lot of people don't like assignment of benefits because contractors will use it to become de facto public insurance adjusters, where they essentially come in and they say, look, I'll put the whole thing back together for you, assign me your claim, all the money will come to me and you don't need to worry about it. But then you lose the opportunity to know what is it that's being paid. But the flip side to that is that if you did have a savvy investor who was interested in purchasing the remainder of your claim along with your property, as long as the offer that was being put is ethical and reasonable, I see no reason why not. But I wouldn't take pennies on the dollar just to do it, if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. And I think this person is definitely not interested in pennies on the dollar for that either. I think it's one thing that it seems, so you're saying replacement cost is either you replace with new, or you replace with new on site where you are, or you replace with new in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And you can either buy in North Carolina or build in North Carolina.
So either way, you still get that replacement cost. And you used a term where you said, I don't think you called it replacement cost lift, but there was some
like an extension.
An extension. Can you explain the replacement cost extension?
So not every policy has it. Different companies call it different things. But essentially what it is when let's say you have $1 million base limit and then you have a 50% extension on top. The insurance company in the beginning might issue you that first $1 million saying it's total loss. Our policy is we issue the policy limit, but they'll also identify all these extra coverages that you have to prove in order to get paid. The extended replacement cost is one of them. So in that scenario, if you had $1 million base with a 50% increase, someone like me would need to show the insurance company that your build is in excess of 1.5 million in order to access the other 500,000 extension.
Very interesting.
Jesse, just a simple question while Teresa's reviewing. Can people assume that insurance is also going to consider their garage and any belongings that they had in the garage, but cars would be under your car policy?
Yeah, so cars are under your car policy. Your garage, if it is detached, is an other structure. If it's attached to the home, it's part of your main dwelling, which generally is better for you. And all of the items that are in the garage would be the same as the items that are within the home. We would help you put together a list from memory to be able to have a full list of all the things that you lost. We price it for you, you approve the numbers, and we get it to the insurance company. And if there is a lawsuit at the end of this thing, which I don't know if there will be, the lists that we make for you tend to be what you use to sue the utility company, because most people have far more personal property than the dollar amounts that are listed.
And when you say other property, does that mean it falls under a different category in your policy? Like you're insured for your main structure and then other? Like if the
Yes.
garage is detached.
So other structures in insurance, what that means is sidewalks, fences, hardscape, pools, detached structures, sheds that are not movable, and basically anything that you would have in your backyard or spread around your house that's a built-in. If you have a grill, things like that, all of those are other structures.
Interesting.
Thank you.
We have been told that the county of Los Angeles is going to do the phase 1 scrape at no cost.
Mhm.
Is there any reason not to have the county do the phase 1 scrape?
I see no reason. I think they have to do the hazardous, like the household hazardous removal. That makes sense to me. You would have them perform that. What it really comes down to is for the debris removal phase, the phase 2, essentially, you deciding whether you want to continue with the county program and have them bill your insurance, or if you want to use a private contractor and have them bill your insurance instead.
Got it.
I'm gonna jump forward. I think you might have touched on this already. It's so funny. I was looking at Teresa. Teresa, you're moving a lot. You might want to keep your phone still.
Oh, sorry.
Like I'm getting dizzy.
I was texting into the chat.
Jesse, can you outline the role of a public adjuster and the role of a lawyer? This comes up. A lot of people have a lot of questions. We even heard, we were on a call earlier with an insurance broker who said something interesting that I hadn't heard. He said, well, in some cases, a lawyer acts like a public adjuster. I was like, so can you touch on that? Because I think it's a big question for folks.
So just as a lawyer can be a realtor, so too can a lawyer be a public insurance adjuster. There are not many lawyers that practice as public insurance adjusters, but there are a few. If it is determined that this is a utility caused fire or something along those lines, then these lawyers will be really valuable because they'll be suing the utility company for all the money above your policy limits that haven't been paid to you. But let's say that there's no utility company that started this thing, that it was an arsonist or something along those lines. Then from a technical perspective, the lawyer would be acting as a public insurance adjuster because there's no one technically to sue. It's just a shame that the lawyer business model, their rates are very high. So they are coming in and performing the role of a public insurance adjuster, but they tend to charge 3 to 5 times as much.
And is the public insurance adjuster's fee, it's a percentage the percentage of what is recovered, as is the attorney?
Correct. The main difference is where I might charge 5 or 10%, they would normally charge 25 to 35%.
And so let's say I'm a total loss. My insurance company pays out what it pays out. Then, and I take that, and then I call you. Your fee is only based on what you help me recover?
Correct. It would only be based on what I call the overage. We would sit down, look through your policy, say, here's the whole coverage. This is what you've been paid. Here's the difference. That's what we're charging on. And it's very, very important. No public adjuster should charge you on money that you already got yourself.
Got it. Got it. Corey, what else do you want to ask?
This is I think we had some folks kind of come in later. So just to be clear, just to circle back, we will post this recording. You probably saw the post for this event on Teresa Fuller's Instagram, and I will post the link there in the bio and probably in the comments. So Teresa Fuller on Instagram. We also did a Zoom yesterday on the same topic. So we'll have 2 Zooms there. Go get all the information from these wonderful folks. And just to clarify, public adjusters, you don't pay them until they are able to garner a reward for you above and beyond what you've already gotten yourself. And they get paid on a percentage of that. So someone's asking, will the insurance company pay the public adjuster? Just to clarify, no, the public adjuster gets paid out of money that they are able to get you rewarded or awarded from your insurance company. Then Jesse, I'm curious, what should we be asking that we're not? Like, what's a big one that we haven't touched on yet that ends up being really important to folks?
So one of the important things I think is having an understanding of what the California Fair Plan is. Many people are insured with the California Fair Plan, and from a technical perspective, it's not a normal insurance company. This is a company that gets paid into by all of the admitted carriers within the state of California, and it has become our carrier of last resort, but it was not ever intended to be used by so many people for wildfire purposes. It's an interesting company. They're very, very difficult to deal with. There are a few other companies that are as difficult, but they're known for being one of the most. The way that they set up their coverage is less awarding or rewarding than the rest of the companies. There's less that you can access, less that you can do. If you are working with the California Fair Plan and you're experiencing pushback, just know you're not the only one. Many people who have to deal with them do seek lawyers or public adjusters.
Anecdotally, we did hear of someone already receiving $1 million claim in Palisades from California Fair Plan, though. So they're awake.
So I had a client too that he was very, very nervous the first day that the fire happened. I told him, wait, don't come with me yet, but he begged. So we retained him. The next day, the California Fair Plan paid him every single policy limit that he had within his policy. I told him, send in the cancellation letter. You don't need us. You've been paid. But the reason why was because this was a 4,000 square foot house with $1.2 million in coverage. He needs at least $3 million in coverage to be able to build that home. But I can tell you that if he did have the $3 million in coverage, they wouldn't have paid his limit because they would have wanted him to substantiate that he was actually going to do the build and it would cost that.
Got it. Got it.
Someone asked if there's any advantage to people working with the same insurer, maybe working together with a public adjuster as well. My hunch is probably not, but if 5 neighbors on the street, all want to work with you, Jesse, is that a thing? Is there a package deal? Is there a punch card?
Well, what I can tell you is you're all going to have, even if you're with the same insurance company, you're all going to most likely have different adjusters, if that makes sense. So we wouldn't be able to go to the carrier and say, I'm going on behalf of this group of people to settle the group of the claims, but it is something that we've been approached by many people where they're essentially saying, look, my 4 or 5 of my neighbors around me have the same coverage or in the same issue. If I go in this direction, I'm fairly sure they're going to need to do it too. But it's not like you're all sharing the experience because everybody's claim is different.
One question I've gotten is, when does your job end? When are you done with the people that hire you?
When the money is paid satisfactorily, or we've determined that because of the details or whatever it is, that the rest of the money is not possible. But we don't stop until either you're satisfied or it's literally impossible.
Okay. That's a good answer.
It is. And I think, I think there's this question has been answered already here, but I think it bears almost asking again, just in different language. If the house is burnt to the ground and you're only insured for 400,000 in replacement cost, but it's going to cost 800,000 to replace something similar bedroom, bath, square footage. What does that mean for you? Does that mean does that mean you're not gonna be have enough cash to do your rebuild? What does it mean?
It means you may need to take money from your other coverages, like the 200 you're going to have in personal property and the 100 you're going to have in code or debris removal or trees, plants, and shrubs, and then put that money back towards the home. But someone in that situation should not hire a public insurance adjuster. If this becomes a lawsuit, they should hire a lawyer because they'll have a big excess loss. But in a situation like that, your insurance company, if you're so vastly underinsured, should pay you your policy limits near immediately. And then it's basically just waiting to see if there is a lawsuit.
So the only way you get more above your policy limits is a lawsuit. Like your policy limits are your policy limits. That's all she wrote.
Yes, unless they truly revise the policy, which in this claims environment would be a nightmare for them.
Okay. Great. Teresa, does anyone out there who hasn't pinged into the chat have a question they would like to ask?
Someone asked me this today while people are typing. Someone asked me, is it possible with smoke damage claim, even though my house is standing, for the insurance company to come in and say, it's too expensive to remediate this smoke with your standing structure, we're just calling this a total loss?
I've never seen that before. Because the difference between a smoke damage and a total loss is astronomical. On one end, we're talking about maybe a few $100,000. On the other end, you're talking about $1 million, $2 million. There's big differences here, and the areas it's different is like your framing, your stucco, your roof, your foundation. Those are very expensive components that just wouldn't be impacted by smoke. But what the question did make me think, which is very important, is that some California Fair Plan policies have a little bubble in the bottom that says smoke, and you have to have it ticked in order to have coverage for smoke.
Ugh.
Us public adjusters don't think that's legal. We think smoke is fire. It all comes from fire, which is what the policy is intended for. So if there's anything that the Department of Insurance should do, it should be making the California Fair Plan not have that little smoke component in there. But part of me feels like they're going to try to do that and realize that it's just not possible.
My other question is, and I hope it didn't just leave my mind. So once your still standing structure has been cleaned, once you've had someone test your lawn to make sure that your toddlers can safely play outside in your yard, if you're not satisfied, if the insured person is not satisfied, and the insurance company says, well, you should be satisfied, our testers say it's safe. If my testers say it isn't, where am I then?
It's a battle of the data. You would need to take your tester's report, actually identify what it is that they picked up and where they picked it up. And then if the insurance company disagrees, you would invite their tester to come back, do a test sample in the same area, and see what results they come forward. But I don't see that happen too often. Normally, the testing companies are independent third parties. They're not the same as the labs. They're separate for conflict reasons. And it's so important that testing gets done appropriately that generally I don't see even the insurance company people faking it.
Great. Someone asked, do you think there will be code upgrades from this event that qualify for code upgrade coverage? Many of our homes were built in the 40s and 50s.
So there's already codes that have changed since the 40s and 50s, probably a gigantic number of them that will need to be implemented with the new build. But just remember, that what the code coverage is for the increase in cost between the new item and the old item. People don't have, generally speaking, much code coverage. It's normally 10% of the policy limit. So it's important when the contractor bids it out that they understand it's not the cost of this electrical panel, it's the cost of this panel now versus the old panel I used to have. That's what's the code. So you don't go beyond your code coverage limits.
Got it.
If somebody owns an apartment, and they usually rent it out to someone else, but they decide to move into it themselves because they no longer have their main property, can they get reimbursed like they're renting somewhere else? Can they still get reimbursed from insurance?
The insurance companies don't like doing this. They should do it, but they don't like doing it. They like to have a lease in place where they can see. I had a client from the Santa Rosa fires where he had another home, so he performed remodeling on that home to be able to live in for the 3 years post fire. The insurance company wouldn't pay for the remodel. They wouldn't pay for the rent. They felt he didn't incur anything. The only time I've seen that performed successfully is when, let's say that the property is owned by a trust or an LLC, and then that LLC leases it out to an individual. That's possible. But if it's like yourself to yourself, they may not like it because an insured is not supposed to profit.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Let's say your home is standing and it's not in the burn zone, but you think that there is a smoke issue. And the insurance people come and they think that there isn't. They think there's nothing wrong. What are your rights in that situation?
You can always challenge your claim. You can always supplement your claim. I had a lady that called me in Camarillo. She was with the California Fair Plan. Her neighbors all around her burnt, but she didn't burn herself. The adjuster came out. She had a $2,500 deductible. He wrote up a quick estimate to clean the airspace inside of the home. It was $3,500. He gave her $1,000. We took a look at the property. There was scorching damage to hardscape. There was scorching damage to stones. The mulch had lit on fire. Stucco was damaged. There was a lot more, probably $150,000 of damage that had been ignored. We put together a great sheet explaining, there's pictures of all the damage, descriptions of it, and it didn't have dollar amounts because we don't want to scare the insurance away. We just want them to understand what's happening. That was submitted 2 weeks ago, and the adjuster hasn't responded because he doesn't want to respond. He thought he already did it right, and now he sees it's not the case. So you can totally do that. Just know that you get ready to fight, if that makes sense.
Right. This may not be your lane. I think this is probably more of a different lane, but if you are a landlord and you have tenants and your tenants are not able to live in the premises, I guess the tenants have to have their own renter's insurance like you discussed. So in that situation, it probably depends on what your tenant's scenario is, but do you know anything about rights, tenants' rights in these things? Like what's the expectation from the board?
It's a good question. I can tell you that there is something, at least in our area, called the tenant habitability program, where if you as a tenant report to the city that there was substantial damage, or the building owner has to file permits, it requires the building owner to identify whether the units are habitable and what measures are being taken to relocate people, relocate their personal property, do the whole thing. It has a lot of components. So if you are a tenant, I would highly recommend trying to get the tenant habitability program in place. And as a landlord, in that situation, you would be paid your loss of rent if the tenants need to leave, and the tenant's insurance would pay them to go and relocate somewhere else.
Got it. We're almost at the hour, and I know you have a very hard stop. Is there anything else you want us to know that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, yes. So the really one of the most important things that we do is prepare the personal property inventory. If you've lost your home entirely, either myself or one of my adjusters will sit down with you, most likely multiple times. We'll go through a sketch of your home, figure out where each item was, how many shirts you would have had in that closet, how many pieces of underwear there would have been in that drawer. And we put together a list per room of all the items you have. We have a great generic inventory that everybody can be working on too to add in all the items. And once you're satisfied that all of the items that you need are there, then my office gets to work pricing it so that it can be submitted to the insurance company. Don't submit a list to the insurance company that isn't priced, because you could send something to them you think is $2 million and they come back saying this is 500,000 and you don't have a way to compare. So anything you submit must be priced.
Got it.
Just for simplicity's sake, with our last couple of minutes, can we just talk about like two paths? If your home is still standing, step one, file a claim. Step two, the insurance adjuster comes out. Step three, you probably want to secure your own environmental testing, which then suggests remediation.
Kind of. Like, what I would say is step one should be, of course, you file your claim, but step two would be to reach out to a professional smoke remediator to come to your home, which they'll do at no charge, and put together a proposal for insurance of what needs to be done. I would have that proposal in your hand before the insurance adjuster actually comes on site. And if your smoke remediator is able to come to the inspection, all the better. And look, if at that point you're comfortable and ready to hire a public insurance adjuster, that's the right time for someone like us to be there too, because the first meeting that your adjuster has is when they set the loss reserve. And like that claim I mentioned in Camarillo, when that guy went out there, he set maybe a $3,000 loss reserve. But now that it's 100 or 200,000, we're going to be really going uphill against this. So by having at least some level of professional there for that first inspection, you'll know that you're off on a good foot.
And when would you get tested? Would that be like before you move back in, where you'd want somebody to independently test and say, this house is not toxic?
So technically speaking, before any remediation or mitigation occurs, the house has to be tested for asbestos and lead paint. If at that time they feel a need to test for other chemicals, they can too, but it is standard at least to test for those before any work is performed.
And who is they?
The tester.
Okay, and do you hire, like, does the homeowner hires the tester? And is that different from the remediation company?
It is different from the remediation company. Normally they work together. So the remediation company might say, I have a testing company, they're ready to come, just let me know when they're there. Because like I said, they have to do lead and asbestos testing automatically on every job. So the remediation company normally already has someone to do testing.
Got it.
Jesse, how do you prefer to be contacted?
Anyway, calling my office is a great way because I have staff here ready for, intake to take down all of your information and get an adjuster to come back out to you. But in the same manner, my cell phone is open. If you want to text me, I have no problem with that. I don't necessarily speak on weekends or like after hours because my wife doesn't like it, but I'm happy to text and help however I can.
Will you give us your office number just now?
Yes, it's 818-728-0900.
And the website is?
Rubin, Rubin, adjust, adjust.com.